As a professor of religion, I've always been interested in not only the religions that I teach, which are religions of the ancient Near East, but in the religions of other peoples, in every place in the world. And also, having worked in the Middle East, in Israel, I'm especially acutely aware of the problems of having Jews and Christians and Muslims coexist in the same country. I see how badly it's working in Israel, Palestine, West Bank, and having met these young Turkish people and hearing how they have this dream of peace among the three Abrahamic religions, I was drawn for an opportunity to see the ideas that they have and how they may work, how they may be put into place in the context of Turkey, which is very different from the other countries of the Middle East.
The reason I've come here is because the Diwan group in Cary, North Carolina sought me out. And I think they took the initiative. They came over and requested to meet me. I had no idea who they were. And they sat down, introduced themselves, invited me to the Diwan Center, and within a year invited me to give one of the major addresses to the annual dinner. And I became truly impressed with their attitude, with their ideology, and was very attracted to it. I had never met young people of Muslim background who were so open and so caring and wanted others to understand their religious tradition, as well as the openness of that tradition to other people like myself, Jews, and to other communities of faith, and even non-faith for that matter. I must say I was ignorant of the Gulen movement, and until they gave me several of the books and articles to read, I was completely naive and uninformed. So after about a year, I became a believer and very much convinced that this was an ideology and movement that I could support and get involved with. And the kind of universalistic thrust and the ideas of peace, it has both a secular as well as a religious component, and that's really what drew me to it.
Well, I think that as we hear often enough from the guides we've had in the various places that we've been, that Turkey has a very long history, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and that sporadically, but most of the time during that long history, it's been multicultural. That is, the Turkomans from Central Asia have come down here. There were indigenous Christians and Jews, and for the most part, they were left alone. They were allowed to practice their own religion. I don't know enough about Turkish history to know whether there was really equality in our modern sense, but nonetheless, they don't seem to have been persecuted. So there is this kind of history in Turkey and the previous Ottoman Empire that perhaps gives this a historical depth to it that it might not have otherwise, and that it seems to be spreading and allow for the possibility of the coexistence of the Abrahamic faiths to perhaps become a reality and spread beyond the shores of Turkey.
I think one of the main reasons that Turkey is involved in this quest is because of its geopolitical and geographical location as the bridge between East and West. In Istanbul, a divided city between Europe in the West and Asia on the East, stands as a symbol of bringing together those cultures. We refer to the Middle East because the Middle East is between Europe and Asia, but Turkey is the only one who completes the picture, so to say. And this is, I think, an extraordinary factor in Turkish history that enables this people and all of its cultural elements to bridge that gap, not only in a physical way, but also in a cultural way. And I see that the movement and the efforts towards peace and reconciliation between so many different peoples, coming in part from Asia and in part from Europe, has a compelling aspect to it that it doesn't have if you go over to the Middle East, for example, in Israel, which likes to think of itself as a Western nation, but it's there right in Southwest Asia, surrounded by Arab countries. And the fact that Turkish language is not a Semitic language, it's not Arabic, places the Turkish Republic in a very special place in respect to Central Asia. And you have the Hittites from the Bronze Age, and they're a unique people, and the Turkish Republic takes its origins all the way back millennia, 3-4 millennia, to the Hittites and even their precursors.
I'm just amazed at how, I just really didn't expect how strongly Turks seem to consider themselves European. Now, I don't know whether this is all recent political economic jockeying for position in attempts to join the European market or not, but just stressing so strongly that their culture really is European and that their way of looking at the world is European is certainly different than what I expected. I just didn't think it would be quite so strong. And maybe that's part of the way in which modernity is not threatening to Turks the way it is to, I think it is to many people in the Arabic Muslim world.
I think the commitment to secularism that Ataturk established in the founding years of the Republic is certainly one of the most binding aspects to Turkish society, and the strong patriotic favor that Turks have in respect to those founding years is rather amazing. But that is the secular thrust to this society. And the Gulen movement has a very strong secular thrust to it. I think in part some of the universalistic thrust is dealing with the strong Turkish commitment to a secular society. So this talk of universalism and this amazing commitment to philanthropy worldwide and to education is at the very core of the Turkish mindset. And everyone, in this movement at least, is committed to philanthropy and to education at the highest level. Middle school, high school, university life. It's rather amazing. And yet in the writings of Gulen and in the experiences we've had, we get a strong commitment to the Islamic faith tradition in the light of these modern conceptions that Gulen himself has attached to the tradition. And that's very interesting. I see this as the Enlightenment finally coming to an Islamic nation in a very, very bright and important and significant way that you don't see, unfortunately, in many of the other Islamic states. Yes, I think the ecumenical movement and the whole idea of dialogue, it emerged in Germany in the 1920s around the writings of Martin Buber in particular, and one of his major followers, Abraham Joshua Heschel, one of the major figures of the American Civil Rights Movement, one of the closest allies and friends of Martin Luther King. Ecumenism, interfaith activities, dialogue was at the heart of the American spirit just when the Civil Rights Movement took root in the 1960s. This is when we got down and fought with our African American friends and helped to bring about a new reality for them. I'd like to add just one thing, that in the ecumenical movement, Pope John the 23rd was a major figure. So Jews and Catholics, Jews and Christians joined in at a more theological level in the dialogue movement back then. But it has petered out, unfortunately, and the kind of spirit that characterized that era is unfortunately gone, and we don't see that effort. And to find it, of all places, in Turkey at this stage of modernity is very curious and very exciting. And I think one of the reasons that we've come on this trip, and one of the reasons we've attached ourselves to the Diwan movement, the Diwan Society in Cary, North Carolina, is because it brings back some of the highest ideals that we embraced 40-some years ago.
As 60s people. Another thing that surprised me, given my sense as an American that Americans aren't all that welcome these days in the Middle East, in light of the Iraq War, when America's policies are so debated and so criticized by many people in this part of the world. I was kind of surprised to find out how pro-American many of the people are many of the people that we've met seem to be. And I'm not sure I exactly understand it, but I think it's because they're looking at a bigger America than I am. I'm just concerned about what my own government is doing right now in the beginning of the 21st century, and they're looking at the larger picture of how America over a couple hundred years began and developed democracy, worked out all kinds of problems, figured out how to move forward. And I think the positive view that they have for America is got a longer historical lens than my own view as an American, when I'm just more living in the present and what I see are the problems in my country right now.
There's no doubt but what the Ottoman rescue of Jews, if I may call it that, after the expulsion from Spain and Portugal in 1492 was a great moment in history, and Turkey in particular can be very proud of the role it played in absorbing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Jews at a critical time when Christianity was forcing conversion upon the Jewish community, and the Ottoman Empire and the Islamic world said they didn't have to do this. We shouldn't romanticize it overly, however, because the status that Jews and Christians held within the Ottoman Empire was a secondary status. And although they were tolerated, they didn't enjoy full privileges, at least as we understand it today. But the experience of rescue was reflected interestingly and significantly, and perhaps not coincidentally, when Ataturk built the new Republic of Turkey and responded to the call from Albert Einstein to relocate Jewish scientists and intellectuals, musicians and artists from the Holocaust here in Turkey. And Turkey again responded positively and absorbed, like many black universities and Duke University, our university, absorbing Holocaust refugees in their midst. And this is very significant. So I think there's a genuine sense and a truthful sense in which Turkey took the Ottoman experience, remembered it, and made the best of it.
No, that's fine. I have nothing to add to that.
Had we not been to the Jewish Museum this morning, I couldn't have said that.
Yeah, it was wonderful that they had that on the itinerary, because that added another dimension to we could see things, real physical things that were part of the Jewish experience in Turkey, and see some of the photographs and the faces, put real people into this abstract idea that Jews and Christians could live in this country. Now we saw examples of real people and the things that they used and the objects that were part of their prayers and so on.
And even a cigarette maker came to America, sold his business to
that we can do without.
Actually, that's a nice tidbit, and you ought to get that on camera.
Yes, but one of the best players on the soccer team was Jewish too, in Turkey, so we shouldn't forget
and played
that.
for Galatasaray. Cut.
Thank you.